Nice Radio's Callaloo presents Just Another Look. Just Another Look is an innovative, exciting, albeit decidedly provocative and yes, certainly controversial socio-political analysis of issues of a local, regional, and international nature. Just Another Look is heard only on Nice Radio. First aired on Saturdays at 6 p.m. with repeat broadcasts on Sundays at 9 p.m. You can always catch us on the World Wide Web, www.niceradio.info. You can check out our Just Another Look blog, www.justanotherlook.com, and you can catch us on YouTube. I am, of course, Keith Joseph. Today, dear friends, is Saturday. It is the 16th day of May, 2020. Welcome to another edition of your favorite program, Just Another Look. We live in a society where it is believed that people have short memories, where it is believed that whatever issues may arise, don't worry, people would not be concerned about it beyond 9 days, the 9-day wonder. And it's amazing how our politicians have taken to that belief, because many of them operate on the basis of that promise. Don't worry, man, it wouldn't last longer than Miss Janie Fire. 9 days, everybody stop talking about it. And so it was probably hoped that people would have forgotten about the fact that there was an accusation involving a police officer, Michelle Andrews, in respect of the Prime Minister of this country. And why people were looking for the matter to go to the court, etc., etc. Boom. Nully prost. And so, as far as many intentions were concerned, and certainly the ruling regime, that's done. But then, there's a matter of an accusation outside of citizens and legalities. And so some people were shocked to have heard it addressed at a forum in New York. And some people were surprised that this is still making the rounds, because it doesn't seem to be normal. And we tend to do things and say things operating on the premise that don't worry, it wouldn't last long. Soon enough people will forget it. And the politicians remain ever hopeful that you forget it. But there are times when you have to jog politicians' memories. You have to remind them that there are some unfinished business. So that for as long as Gonzalez lives, the issue of the Michelle Andrews case, because it was nulliprost, will continue to be in the public domain, in spite of that belief that the broader quote-unquote Vincentian public may well appear to have forgotten it. It is also the reason why we keep in this forum that particular matter. The same way we keep asking, what is it about Canada, with whom almost every Caribbean government had long-standing relations? What it is about Canada that has left our country's prime minister going all over the world, establishing all sorts of fancy relations with all sorts of countries, that since that very first visit to Canada after having been elected, that one with Glenn Jackson and a whole lot of other things that happened then, why is it he has never ever visited Canada after that? Never. That remains an interesting situation, because it begs the question whether the talk that people have had about an accusation involving the Prime Minister, whether there is some merit to that. But you may also remember the huff and puff that both the Prime Minister and Julian Francis made about the cross-country rule. That is no longer in the public domain, because they don't want to tell you that all of the promises that they keep telling you have been fulfilled. They pick and choose which parts of each of their manifestos they find it appropriate to tell you they have fulfilled. So the cross-country road is not mentioned. The promised ecotourism hotel across the Dry River is no longer mentioned. And while many thought that priority would have been given to the introduction of integrity legislation, that is not being mentioned. So their capacity to sift and to have you focus on what issues they want you to focus on and how they want you to focus on those issues. So while there's absolutely nothing wrong with the construction or the decision to construct an international airport, one would have imagined that if you're introducing and have a commitment to a consultative democracy, that there would have been engagement of a broader spectrum of society. That if you at the ruling party can have a political rally on the airport, so could others. And then a star is located in concrete, embedded in concrete for the opening ceremony, and then we say, we don't know how it got there. We don't know how it got there, but we will destroy it. After the fact. After the fact. Remember too, we had this rush some years ago where the Public Health Department was busy taking all the derelict vehicles away from people. Move them yourself, or we will move them for you and charge you for their removal. Hot, hot, hot. And then suddenly, that too stopped. And one wonders, well, what happened to that program? Are we now content and intent on leaving derelict vehicles all over the place as was the case before? What happened? And why don't we ask those questions? Wait until the next epidemic, not chikungunya anymore, but some other epidemic, to come and say, we're going to move them again. We're going to start moving them. The project simply stopped. No explanation. That is not good governance. And good governance is not because you simply say that you're practicing good governance. The Business and Guidance has been very fortunate, because we continue to be spared the worst of hurricanes that some of our neighbors have experienced. But we always need to be appropriately prepared. But we are very good at adhocracy, at after the fact. And we can't seem to understand that we need to be far more proactive. So the nation's schools are to be reopened, but only for students who are doing external exams. Because there's an issue of social distancing that we have not yet come to terms with. So you look around Kingstown and other parts of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, where institutions have inside of them put down markers for people's social distancing. They've even put tents outside because of the long lines that you have to use. But there are no marks outside for social distancing. So you're not protected or encouraged to practice social distancing outside these institutions. The social distancing affair is relevant only when you get inside. It could only be the employees of the institution that you're seeking to protect. Because the people have already gone against all the social distancing practices outside, jamming up on one another. And when they reach inside, suddenly they keep their distance. What's the value of that? But we've been lucky. We've been fortunate. And we're getting all sorts of explanations from all sorts of doctors and medical experts as to why we are fortunate. Doesn't matter that we have some of the same temperature and climatic conditions of some of our neighbors, but we're fortunate. So what do we do with that good fortune? How do we sustain the quality of life that the COVID-19 pandemic has imposed on us? Because growing up, you would have been told, wash your hands regularly. Use soap and water regularly when doing so. Ensure good hygienic practices. But we know very well that in most of our schools, there is no soap in the washrooms. So you were encouraged to use the washroom and wash your hands, but you know there was no soap there. And we can go through the long list of practices. And we are aware that sometimes it's not just the institution to take the blame. The students themselves engage in poor hygienic practices. And you ask some schools when they see what is attempted to push in the toilet, you want to know why is a chubby bottle being pushed down a toilet? Why would a student attempt to do that? Why would some students attempt to mark all sorts of things on the walls? But what kind of upbringing would those students have had? We're very good at ensuring now that we have security at the front gates of our educational institutions. What we're not good at is monitoring the hygienic practices during the day. Making sure that at break time there is in fact soap and toilet paper available in the washrooms. Engaging the children on a daily basis in practicing good hygiene, in maintaining the cleanliness of their surroundings at our educational institutions. We need to do that. Because sometimes if the children come from homes where those practices are not commonplace, the fact that they're being encouraged to do it on a consistent basis at their educational institutions may enable them to take those practices back home. The family may be better off for it. The community may be better off for it. And the entire St. Vincent and the Grenadines will certainly be much better off for it. So if we treat this as simply something that comes with the pandemic, and once the pandemic is over, we cease all of those important educational practices, then we go back to what we used to do. The fact that we have now to be telling people, don't pick your nose, don't do this, don't do that with your face, etc., etc. Those were always practices you were supposed to engage in from the time you were small. But we are aware that we don't do them. So we are hopeful that little boy Blue will use his horn not just to thump his chest and to try to win the seat in the next elections, but to engage in a more longer-term approach to health and wellness in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. There's one thing that should come out of the way we approach this pandemic. It should be that. A commitment on the part of all concerned to ensure that people are appropriately educated on a full-time basis going forward in respect of good health practices. Let us not wait until something like this happens and people are giving funds for all sorts of things to say we're using the fund now to do the education program. The Ministry of Health certainly could do with help with regard to an ongoing communication program about health and wellness. Make more use of the programs of health words, etc. Make people understand the importance of those programs now more than ever going forward. And saying that, NEMO could also do with the health. So perhaps they may see the value of having people who are schooled in the art of communications, whose expertise rests with communication in order to facilitate a better handling of the education programs that these institutions need on a regular basis. So we are happy that we've finally gotten up and running with regard to online teaching and the possibility of having some face-to-face engagement with those who have external exams. But it has taken us certainly too long to get to online schooling. And we can hope that this is not a one-off thing. That this is not a COVID-19 thing. That what we need to do is to have the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, engagement with the private sector, community groups, NGOs and whatever else, to facilitate greater access to the internet across St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So that our children across the entire nation can access educational materials. That across the nation, efforts are made to ensure that all of our teachers are appropriately trained in online teaching. How to use the tools that are available and to make those tools available across St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Let us not wait until something serious happens, as is the case now, to try to rush to do things that we could have done 10 years ago. Good at rushing thing, you know. Remember, in an anxiety to showcase how well we could do in the first 100 days, remember we spent money like water, you know. While the Prime Minister, Dr. Saul, kept thinking and saying that he received a bad hand, he was able to pay off so many institutions. And all Hanem used to say to him, well, boss, it doesn't seem as though you know how to run a house. Because nobody pays off all their debts one time. You manage your debts and you know how much you give this one, how much you give that, and you give everybody a little something over a period of time. If you seek to go and pay off everything all at the same time, you'll find yourself without money in the treasury. Voila. So said, so done. So all the boasts that we had, all the institutions that we set up, NESDEC, this, that, contact with civil society, everything, came virtually to a screeching halt. But then we learned that you have to manage the economy. And we have to give thanks that we can continue to milk Taiwan. Because that sometimes appears to be what we are doing. And one wonders whether it is because of the access to Taiwan and its funding for projects that we continue to be making the cases that we have done in respect of support for Taiwan at an international level. So sometimes you wonder if we're playing a kind of political game, and that's the reason why we ask time and time again, did Papa, before winning elections and getting into office, did he ever have or thought to have any relations with mainland China? Because just another look is clear that once he got into office and realized that the previous regime, the Animus and others, had just signed a big agreement with Taiwan for a whole bunch of millions of dollars, and he couldn't afford to let that go. And since that, we've been with Taiwan more than ever. Oh, we singing Taiwan's praises more than anybody else. But one wonders whether things could have been different. And so since last year, people were saying, don't worry, laptops coming in 2020. They said, how you know that? Well, it's elections and laptops on the market. Now we are being told that the laptops are a new idea to address the situation that's emerging as a result of COVID-19. And you're being made to feel, well, okay then, that when you were hearing about the computers, the laptops coming in 2020, when you were hearing that in 2019, that was rumors people were spreading. Were they? Were they? But there's a level of political convenience that occurs every time elections are coming. And that's why we say without fear of contradiction, this is not a stimulus package that you got the other day. And perhaps that's why you left the NDP for last to tell them about it. After you tell everybody like Licks with Posey, you tell everybody. Yeah? Until you left them for last, just a few hours before you have the parliamentary session. So just a matter of telling you, well, you heard it already, you know, here guys, this is what we're doing. They had no real input. No input. There's no consultation ready. It is that we are telling you, we're running the country. So even after almost 20 years in office, there seems no commitment on the part of the administration to create any consultative democracy. And just another look says, outside of what was written in the paper for the manifesto in 2001, there's never really any intention. Even after 20 years, you can't do it. Huh? In 2010, you hustled and you brought laptops for children. But that was it. An attempt was made to create a system for online teaching that never went anywhere. It takes us another 10 years before we start getting it done. And it has nothing to do with bringing in laptops, because you brought more laptops in 2014 ahead of the 2015 general elections. And still nothing happened with regard to online teaching. But the COVID-19 necessitated the closure of schools, and you had to bring something now. You have to put things in place. Only after schools took their own initiative. Only after schools took their own initiative. So it's not a government-driven thing, which is good. Because in every society, our various institutions need to show a level of independence and commitment to national development. So it is good that teachers took the initiative. It is good that schools took the initiative, principals took the initiative. But it left us with a multiplicity of platforms being used by different institutions, just as we have a multiplicity of books being used for the same subject areas. Now more than ever, we need to consider why at the primary and secondary levels we are using so many different books for what is supposed to be the same syllabi. Now is an opportunity for us to do that, to address it more particularly, more deliberately, more meticulously, more scientifically. So COVID-19 has offered us these opportunities. Are we going to make good use of them? So don't come and tell us of all the places you could find funding for laptops. Don't even come and tell us what it costs. Because you really can't put a value on people's votes, and it's the votes you want. That's what it's about. Votes. Vote getting. That's what it's about. So hopefully, COVID-19 will leave St. Vincent and the Grenadines perhaps a legacy that is a return to basic hygienic practices on a regular basis, on a daily basis by the people of this country. That our institutions would pay more attention to facilitating good hygienic practices by ensuring that those institutions adequately serve. Yeah? Don't stop now providing hand sanitizers when people come in your business place. Keep providing it. Keep providing it. Ensure that your toilets are appropriately clean and serviced, and that they are provided with the necessary soap, water, toilet paper. That's what it's about. It's a way of life. So our public health department should seize this opportunity to physically check our institutions. Not just government, everybody owned that serves the public. And use the opportunity to engage those institutions to put in place what is required to maintain good hygienic standards. Let us grade them. And where they're inadequate, either they fix it or you expose them. There's no reason why as a small society we can't be doing better in terms of how we keep our surroundings. But the political divisiveness, the political tribalism that is perpetrated and deliberately perpetuated in this country is what has kept us apart. And we need to do our best to break that trend. You know, friends, the next segment in today's program is headed Political Garbage in the Name of Love. More Elections 2020 Rescue Economics. That's what we have labeled the next section. Political Garbage in the Name of Love. More Elections 2020 Rescue Economics. You may recall that when the Prime Minister made his big tour and the Minister of Finance came and talked about what we're doing in the face of the pandemic, we said that what they produced was not a stimulus package per se. It was an Elections 2020 Rescue Economic Package. An Elections 2020 Rescue Economic Package. It was a means and an opportunity to reorient their focus. Because here is an opportunity to facilitate electioneering without it being obviously electioneering. So as we draw ever closer to the pending general elections, which is likely to take place in December if the regular superstition of the political leadership, the apparent superstition about the political leadership, about the number 7, about the month of December, etc., etc. If that superstition, alleged apparent superstition continues, then we should have the elections in December. But as we come closer to the elections, Vincentians are experiencing the unfolding of the several ways in which it is possible to interpret what Just Another Look referred to as the Elections 2020 Rescue Economic Package. It is unfortunate that some people have chosen to refer to the foregoing as something of a stimulus package. But the more that is revealed, the more one comes to recognize the incredible folly of such an interpretation. The latest revelation is the announcement on Thursday of this week of what has been labeled love boxes. Love boxes. You see, in previous programs, we have told you that Dr. Sauls is proficient at identifying concepts and then beating them to death so that they become part of the Vincentian lexicon. So now we transition to love boxes. Remember that in the last elections, it was Labour love. Now we transition to love boxes. Suddenly, the Gonzalez-led political administration has remembered that we can deliver food packages to the poor in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Suddenly, he remembers that we can deliver food packages to the poor. You have St. Vincent de Paul that used to exist. You have the Salvation Army. You have the Catholic Church. You have a whole lot of groups, religious groups, that feed the poor in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The government has said that it has increased the poor relief. They put more money in people's hands. Remember that? They put in more money in their hands so they could do more. But elections come in. So now there's an opportune time, because we can work under the cover of COVID-19 to say that every 2 weeks we are going to give 3,000 poor people food packages. Love boxes. Love boxes of food. Are we trying to say, well, we're not picking the people? It don't matter who picked the people. What matters is the outcome. The outcome is not just that you're feeding the hungry. The outcome is the impression you're giving in an election year. That suddenly we can find the resources to provide 3,000 people with food 2 weeks, every 2 weeks. Well, we could do that all year. We could be doing that all year. Make food boxes available to the 3,000 people that you seem to think is a nice figure, because there is no basis on which you arrived at 3,000. It sounds like something that came off the top of your head. One would have imagined that with all your poverty alleviation exercises, etc., etc., there would have been some scientific basis on which to arrive at a number of people who are sufficiently indigent for you to require that they be put on this list to get food boxes every 2 weeks, and not just during this pandemic. One would imagine that a broader national strategy would have been more consultative before being announced, so that there would have been an engagement of those institutions, religious or otherwise, that already provide food packages for indigents in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And then a determination of a process for ensuring that the boxes get to those most in need. But you make the announcement so that it becomes good political fodder. The political currency of the announcement is what is important, isn't it? rather than the process. Because the idea is to garner votes, to make the electorate believe that we are so concerned about you. That look, we just dream up this thing about love boxes. We're going to give you food. Just Another Look says that whole presentation by the Prime Minister constitutes little more than political garbage. Little more than political garbage. We'll explore it. Isn't it funny that this sudden jolt of conscience happens to coincide with the countdown to the next general elections? No, it's not funny. It is serious business, as one can hardly interpret the latest salvo as part of the ULP's same old khaki pants we have come to see before us every time elections come around. We see it every time elections come around. They've been getting love packages, you know. They've been putting together love packages since day one. What do you think the lumber, galvanized steel and cement were? Love packages. They just didn't call them that yet. The concept didn't come to their mind. But now we're giving out love boxes. You see, Eyewitness News dated Friday 15th May 2020 carried an article headlined, "Government to hand out love boxes of food." And the headline says it all, you know. Government to hand out love boxes of food. The government-led administration is in the business of handouts. Handouts. So, on a regular basis, we hand out lumber, galvanized steel and cement. And since this is a small country, so some people know who get, and who get every time they hand it out. People know who be selling. So they're in the business of handouts. So now we have another handout. Does it sound like charity? Of course it does. And perhaps that is what it is intended to sound like. A handout. Gonzalez is well aware of the state of St. Vincent and the Grenadines today, socially. He is well aware that despite all of the bravado of how well his administration has addressed poverty alleviation in this country, that there may well have been significant failures along the way. In this charitable effort aimed at redressing what some may have perceived as historical wrongs on the part of the ULP's failure to address or adequately address poverty alleviation, not through straight and crooked thinking, but in real terms, is this what it is? Is this what it is? Some may recall, you know, that there was a time when the ULP leadership criticized the NDP for having old people voting. They were accusing the NDP, oh, they only have old voters, we have the young people. We have the young people. And when you keep the young people, or you keep the old people, they're out anyway. That was the attitude. But the love boxes may well now be a deliberate attempt at reaching those very old people in order to get a vote. It may be an attempt now to go after the older folks, because you may have begun to recognize that an increasing number of young people are no longer interested in the politics of the ULP. They recognize what has happened in the ULP. They recognize that you came in telling us there was corruption, that you will address white-collar criminality. But what we have seen since 2001 is a failure to even put the most fundamental thing in place, which you promised, which was integrity legislation. So none of your ministers or high-ranking officials have in fact been committed to revealing the truth about their sources of income before getting into office, and the state of their income and sources since being in office. People know the salaries of ministers of government, and it's easy for them to make a judgment call in terms of the lifestyles that they now see those ministers engaging in since being in office. And they can make the very quick analysis of affordability. On the matter of integrity legislation, we always refer to the situation in the Bahamas, where the then Prime Minister, the man whom many consider one of the founding fathers of an independent Bahamas, Lynden Pindling, having been accused of all sorts of corrupt practices, etc., called a commission of inquiry into himself. And one of the persons on that commission of inquiry was Anglican Bishop Drexel Gomez, who was based in Barbados. When the inquiry was finished and declared Lynden Pindling of any evidence of corruption, Bishop Drexel Gomez asked leave to provide his own report, because he felt he needed to say certain things. And it was clear from his pronouncement that while they found no evidence of wrongdoing on the part of Lynden Pindling, Prime Minister of the Bahamas, there was a problem insofar as accounting for the monies in his bank account that were in excess of the legitimate monies earned as Prime Minister. So you couldn't prove that these monies came by corruption, but you also could not prove where they came from. Yeah? One of the reasons we appeal for integrity legislation, which we thought the ULP was interested in, was to ensure that you protect public officials from themselves. Not long after taking office, it is just another look that gave the name to that project, the Bridge Over Troubled Waters. Because we understood the troubled waters. We understood that the basis of the bridge was donated as a gift. It was the bottom of a 40-foot container, of those container rigs, what you carry the containers on. So you didn't have to pay for that. But quite apart from that aspect, the entire project did not go through the tenders board, which is supposed to be the law. But not only did it not go through the tenders board, the minister responsible said he bypassed the tenders board because he wanted to get the job done quickly. And that the tenders board process would have taken too long, too much red tape. And consequently, he declared that if the situation were to reoccur, he will do it again. And then it depth, whoop, that stopped. Nobody talk about it anymore. That is why you have integrity legislation, you know. Because you protect ministers, public officials from themselves. You may do things with the best of intentions, you know, but you may find yourself in a bit of a quandary when things like those occur. So the love boxes may well now be a commitment on the part of the same Gonzalez-led ULP to target the very old people once thought to be the basis of NDP support. Vincentian must understand that Gonzalez is a spent political force. He has been unable to transition with time. He remains stuck in an historic political era and the framework that has long since been cast upon the dung heap of political history, yet he cannot help himself. He is who he is. Gonzalez's hubris appears to cajole him into trying to write his own history. Perhaps because he may be fearful of what historians may write about him. So now we are on to love boxes. The obvious political gamesmanship seems to thrive on political garbage packaged as a form of caring, as opposed to stark, naked, barefaced, archaic politicking. You want to repeat that? The obvious political gamesmanship seems to thrive on political garbage, packaged as a form of caring, as opposed to stark, naked, barefaced, archaic politicking. So Eyewitness News quotes Gonzalez. We quote, "It's a fantastic program," end of quote. Of course it is. Of course it is. Is Gonzalez talking about the Gonzalez project? So of course it's a fantastic program. You don't wait on anybody to tell him. He thought of it. He's implementing it. It must be fantastic. Such humility. Oh, such humility. And modesty. Oh, my word. Gonzalez appears to have developed a penchant for not waiting on others to analyze his initiatives. He initiates them, and then he appears to pat himself on the back for having done so and continues to laud them. We ought not to be surprised, therefore, that it is Gonzalez himself that states of his initiative, quote unquote, "It's a fantastic program." Of note is that it is not the Minister of Agriculture, Saboto Caesar, who gets the opportunity to boast of his government's initiative. So Saboto walking around like a checker in V-shed, dressed up like Kid Kangaroo, with a sheet, flipboard in his hand. And one would have imagined that when you're talking food and food packages, that the Minister of Agriculture would have been engaged. But you see, you can't give him that opportunity. Because remember, there's still a question of who succeeds Ralph Gonsalves as leader of the party. And Saboto has an interest. And there's an interest for on behalf of Camilo, or so it seems. Papa seems to have that kind of interest. But Papa realizes that it's not so easy to put Camilo into the big chair. But at the same time, while Saboto have to contend with Israel Bruce in the constituency and have his head hot, particularly over the latest part with regard to the COVID-19 in the Greg's community, the heart of his constituency, and trying to shore up support nationally by being regularly on television and radio talking about agriculture and food security and so on, and then walking around Gisha like a checker. Busy doing that, there has to be caretaking that he's still a viable candidate for the leadership. So if you don't have him be the one to be in charge of this new Marshall Plan, quote unquote, of love boxes, the leader does it himself. The leader does it himself. So you don't let Saboto do it, because that would allow for Gonsalves' hubris to be adequately, would not allow for his hubris to be adequately steroid fed. And we know of his penchant for the forefront. So it seems that it must come from Gonsalves the elder and none other. Feed the hubris, feed it. Feed the hubris, feed it. Feed it to steroids. You see, the others in the government can speak about initiatives that Gonsalves has conceptualized and initiated and made public after he has allowed himself to get the electorate to know all of the foregoing. Yeah? That's what he did with the election 2020 rescue economic package. Let you know, I am the one doing it. I am the one presenting it. I am the one leading the party into the elections. Vote for me and the party. You see, the glory appears to be the sole purvey of Gonsalves in all things political. What we are seeing here is what has been happening since 2001. There is nothing new. Some may recall that Gonsalves appeared only too eager to sell himself as the education prime minister after taking office. Remember that? He sold himself as the education prime minister. And his mantra then was an education revolution. And there was this rush to show something tangible